Welcome, everybody, to another episode of HorseShow360 podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in week to week and listening into all of our horse show insights. We've had a great opportunity to have a number of respected guests in the industry, and we have another one here today. I know last week we had Charlie join us for another episode of HorseShow360 to discuss fees. The episode recap was a little bit about his background as an equestrian, his background as growing up in a family business, and how that's related to his current life and his current business and everything. And we just wanted to continue on with the episode of fees because it's definitely a huge hot topic, I think, for everybody in the industry. Costs are skyrocketing on both sides, whether it be for equestrian organizers. Costs are skyrocketing everywhere, as well as on the exhibitor side. Exhibitors' costs have been continuously going up and up throughout the years. So, Charlie, thanks for joining us for another week of this episode.
You're welcome.
I think it's definitely something we want to keep elaborating on so people can understand why the horse shows charge what they charge, and try to rationalize both sides and see it from both sides. And I think it's really an interesting conversation, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's get back into it. So I think kind of where we left off a little bit was you were kind of doing the breakdown of a horse show bill. When you go for a horse show bill at the end of the week and you listed, I don't know if it was 20 or 15 different amount of fees that kind of a lot of them make sense to me. I guess whether it be facility, the paramedic fee, the manure removal, the office fee, the nighttime security fee, the security fee in general.
Yeah, just as a recap, let me go down and read that for all the fees that could be on a potential bill or lumped into a potential bill, and we can kind of go over each one. And then I also want to go over on our side the fees that go a little bit more in depth to give people an understanding of why we charge what we charge in an entry fee and everything like that, because I think the explanation is kind of important. It's important to understand. And I also then want to remember to relate it to other continents events. And a lot of times people from foreign countries and everything like that, like obviously we love to have them here in the States, but it's hard for them to conceptualize why events are done the way they're done over here and not similar to other continents. And I'd love your opinion on that stuff. I just don't want to forget to go over that. But let's go over a little bit specifically. I got a list here. I'll just run down the list quickly. You have an entry deposit we discussed, which I think is normal, right? It's just like a hotel room, any other kind of deposit. You're setting a deposit for reserving a stall, because it really does affect the event if you end up canceling late and there's no deposit there for a late entry type of thing. And especially if the event can't resell that stall, that's a huge knock on the event income wise, because chances are they still have to pay the venue for holding that stall. So you have event entry deposit, you have a facility fee that covers all of, you know, gas prices, increases in venue prices, like manure removal that people don't even think about, but like that stuff is so expensive. Office fee, we discussed in the previous episode. Office fee is so vital, and this is always a little bit of a hot topic as well. The amount of time and hours that the office team puts into handling entries, filing entries, correspondence with the federations, everything like that, that happens pre-event and post-event is like a full-time job. So that's what that is for. Paramedic fee, that's literally just cost of hiring the paramedics, and everything along those lines. The team that's there, I don't think anybody really questions the paramedic fee. At least I wouldn't as an exhibitor. I want to be sure that a high level event has an exhibitor safety and a team that's competent in place, don't you think? I mean, that's a no-brainer, no?
Oh, a lot of these fees make sense. You want to finish going through them, and then I just have a
Yeah.
couple questions.
Night watch, again, equine welfare, safety. I have a specific team of night watch people that come through that I trust, that I know. They literally travel with us coast to coast, this night watch team, because I trust that they are horsemen. They know what to look for. They know how to account for every detail. If a horse is blanket is tangled or a horse is cast, they know how to handle these things. Obviously, calling the contacts and everything, like they're equipped to handle all the variables that an equestrian event could come about. So that fee, we pay that directly to them. We just capture the cost, and then we that's what we pay them. Horse ambulance, same kind of thing. Like, not gonna lie, we had a really scary incident happen this past week in Sarasota, where a horse got injured during the FEI class in the warm up ring. Um, and it's just so important to be prepared. If we didn't have a proper ambulance on there, we wouldn't have been able to handle that as well as we did. So again, those costs are just so needed. And then you have, the national stall prices, late entry fee. Again, late entry fee is really difficult for us because that makes the office team scramble to get everything ready and prepared and back numbers and all of that. Um, I think that's been a fee that's been on horse show fees since the test of time. Like that's been around forever. Nomination fees for jumping a certain level and certain prize money level, which I know you're going to want to get into. Non-showing fee. These are for horses that are not competing at a horse show but taking up a stall, and that changes from show to show. That's a discretionary thing. I had a prominent trainer years ago come to me really upset and not want to come back to my horse shows because my non-showing fee was too high. And I get their stance because sometimes they don't have a home base. They got to bring everything to every horse show. So those non-showing horses have to still be accommodated at a reasonable price. So I gave a bit on that and significantly lowered my non-showing horse fee. I think it's stall plus 150, which includes everything. Don't forget, a non-showing horse still has to have a back number, still has to have an entry in for the current USCF rules, has to have a back number, has to have an entry, liability wise, still has to get night checked, still is being ridden or roaming around the property on these venues that, the horse still can get injured. The rider on that horseback can still get injured. So all those other fees are lumped into that to make it affordable and still access all the amenities. Um, Early arrival fee I have on my list. Obviously, if you're arriving early, we have to charge for that stall. Not expensive. $50 a night is actually extremely cheap. Late checkout, similar to late entry. Then you have the different fines. You have leash law fine for the dogs on a leash. I'm just going down all of them. All these are all potential fees that could be on a bill. Not necessarily are they on every bill. You have a USCF fee per horse. You have a USHJA fee per horse. You have a show pass fee if you're a one-time shower. Drug and med fee for USCF. Again, we capture that and give that right back because those are those things. You have international high performance fees, Sharps container fine. So those are different fines I have on my list in case you don't follow those rules. We have a credit card fee, a fee for insufficient funds for bouncing. We talked about ship-in fees. Just want to be aware, in Kentucky, we give completely free ship-in to everybody because we do want to make it really accessible. That's one thing about Kentucky that's so amazing. We discussed it is really accessible for everybody. We want everybody to be able to come to Kentucky, show for a fairly inexpensive. And when you're looking at your big picture, whether you're getting hotel rooms, renting stalls at different places, ship-in's really important for us. We want people to be able to develop young horses, do all those kind of things for as efficient as possible. So, as a team here at Split Rock, we really felt that giving free ship-ins for everybody was really important for those kind of things, even though it costs us money. I think it's $35 a horse that comes on that property that ships in. They literally go and count.
So,
So
question with the ship-in fee. Can I cut you off there?
sure.
Okay. So, ship-in fee. Um, I know big box shows versus one-off shows versus 2-week shows. Everybody has different ship-in fees or don't have ship-in fees or whatever there be. In From a competitor side point of view, is sometimes the ship-in fee help the horse show because without ship-ins, you wouldn't be able to maybe hit the capacity you can hit, whether it be amount of stalls. And I'm just thinking of big shows like, big box shows like Hits or Wellington. Wellington is its own beast because I'd say 50% or more of the people are shipping in from off the show, don't stable on the show. I have a hard time paying shows a ship-in fee when maybe they wouldn't have been able to even hold that amount of horses if they try to do it. What is your feeling on that?
Completely agree.
Okay.
Completely agree with you. I mean,
Okay.
I can't speak for other people's
No.
policies.
Yeah.
We've never, let's say for instance, our biggest Split Rock's biggest show. This is what I can give you as an example. Split Rock's
Okay.
biggest show is in June. Okay, we've never been sold out. Okay, this year we're expecting a very big turnout because we do have junior hunter finals and a lot of other cool things going on. But um, we offer free in that, not at that show, because I could see a show if they're sold out encouraging more ship-ins, which is I think what you're referring to, because it helps out them getting a number of stalls opened to people that wouldn't necessarily buy a stall. Is that what you're
Yeah.
referring to? So
Yes.
yeah, I mean it definitely is a help thing. I know personally from my experience, let's talk about WEF, for
Okay.
instance. Again, I don't literally don't know what their fees are this year. I don't know anything. Maybe you can help me out with that a little bit, but
Yep.
in general, like I do think it's ridiculous for like a WEF to charge a shipping fee because a lot of people are having it's saving them money, I guess, because they're not getting stalls, but then also they wouldn't be able to accommodate the 2,500 people competing a week or whatever the
Or
number is.
more. Yeah.
So that I understand on the exhibitor side where it might be a little weird, but you'd have to correct me if I'm wrong. They used to. As an exhibitor, I used to pull my truck up on Appaloosa, unload my horse, and walk over because I rented stalls farther away. I couldn't just walk. Um, but then again, I don't think I even could have. I don't think it was available to me to even get stalls for the whole circuit on property. You know,
Yeah,
I
that
don't
was
know.
just a question. It was just a question. I thought that was, and then, so, okay, I understand a late fee and the aspect from an organizer. It's very hard if you have 200 entries coming in 2 weeks out, right? Because you're scrambling, like, do I take them or do I have to call my stable manager and say, hey, can you get me an extra tent? And scrambling, and that makes things very hard. I can understand the late fee. Um, I guess just looking at from entry fees, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, this year, a lot of the fees that are there, a lot of them are safety aspects. And that I always have to agree with. We're dealing with live animals. And now it's becoming a business where you're dealing with live animals. You're dealing with a lot of golf carts, a lot of motorized vehicles, a lot of traffic. I can understand a lot of the safety things. It's still hard for me to wrap my head around how I feel like the entry fee in general went from 500-600 bucks a horse to 1100-1200 bucks a horse, but the prize money that doesn't feel like is catching on. And I don't know, and I understand this is a business, and I understand there are break-even costs and like that. I wonder, what some of the smaller shows do. Could a bigger show do ad backs instead of splitting the divisions? Have you tried that? Do competitors not like that? What's the feeling on ad backs?
I think that would hurt the exhibitor more, to be
Okay.
honest.
Okay.
I and let me clarify. I think that would hurt the show more because you think about a lot of the classes that don't have a lot in it, and then if you're only
Yeah.
doing an ad back, then you're
Yeah.
literally competing for less. I don't think that that would even out in the right direction. Just so everybody understands, when Charlie
Yeah,
mentions add
yeah,
back,
yeah.
is like you're saying what portion of competitors are in it, you're relating to the number of prize money. So if you have, let's say, an entry fee is $50 and you only have four in it, and you're offering a percentage of that total entry fee to the prize money. So let's say call it 50%, then the prize money of that class might only be $100. Or if an ad back is the total, which you couldn't do, you couldn't run a business that way. A show would lose money if you offered the entire amount
Yep.
of ad backs. So that's why
Correct.
ad backs are really not utilized that often.
Okay.
Um, I see an ad back scenario being okay in a national Grand Prix. I've been in situations where I have far less than I expected in it, and people really expected a certain threshold of prize money. I could see that working for the event, but not on an every class situation. And I'm going to have to give a little pushback to you, honestly. I think you're focused on sort of the higher levels, because if we would do an analysis, which is maybe something we should do, I wasn't prepared for that. I probably could have done it. If we would have done, if you look at a comparable show, okay, like let's just call our June shows, which are monsters, they're really big events. How much prize money are we giving out over the course of 2 weeks? Like, I think we're giving out 750,000, something along those lines. Over the 3 weeks, I think we're giving out close to 1 million with junior hunter finals. Um, Now, your head is saying 15 years ago, I used to be able to show for $500 or $600 a horse. Well, I'd be curious to see how much those events, overall comparable events, gave out in prize money. My guess would be it's close to half also. So when you're saying why hasn't the show, what is your feeling coming from? Why?
So
You
I
said
have
in
a
the last
little
episode.
I have a little personal experience with it this year, just because I had a 7-year-old, and pre-circuit, which pre-circuit here in Wellington, you're showing an international rank. That's one of the bonuses, one of the draws, versus during circuit, it's just FEI horses or maybe high amateurs or high juniors. So in pre-circuit, they do the ad backs for 125 and higher. So like you said, if there's 4 in the meter 40 class, and the minimum prize money is $500, you're maybe getting $600. Not a huge bump. But in some of the pre-circuit shows, when there's a meter 30 class and there's 40 in it, now I've been first and second in that, and all of a sudden, because it's a pre-circuit show, the entry fees are less than circuit. They are more like $700 versus $1,100. And then all of a sudden, I go from winning in circuit, if I won 2 classes, it was $360, versus if I won 2 classes pre-circuit with an ad back, it was $965. So, and that's not FEI.
I
That's
think
just the
that's
meter
just a
30.
supply and demand situation, to be honest with you.
Okay. So you're saying they use that for what?
No, I'm just saying I think it's a supply and demand situation.
Okay.
I don't know any business on the planet that would operate differently than that. You know, if you have, I'm going to give you an example, and this is just common business sense that I know you'll be able to relate to. If you have a horse, let's call it what's the one type of horse that everybody wants to have to be able to sell for the most amount of money? Like a meter 45 horse nowadays, right?
I would assume a high amateur horse.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you have, and nobody can find them, right? And you've got the one, that price is a horse is going to be expensive. Now, I'm just correlating because that's the horse industry. Okay. If you have, you know, the demand for events, people competing at WEF, which is what you're describing, is very high. Okay. They're offering a product. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not saying it's this and that. I'm just saying they're offering a product in a location that is an extremely high demand for good reason. And people make that their home base. There's a lot of reasons behind it. The area is great. The climate's great. Whatever the reasons you want to say. Pre-circuit, I'm not going to speak for them, but I'm guessing the demand isn't that high. People are in other places. People are in competing at other events. So they want to entice more people to come compete so they can keep operating. You know, venues and places like that have operational costs that they have to make up what those costs when they can. They have employees that are on payroll, I'm sure, year round, so
So
they're
you're
char
explaining essentially like a professional business. It's the same then.
yeah, they're charging
Yeah.
probably less to try to get more people to compete at those events at that time. They don't need to do that during circuit, but it's like economies of scale. They're trying to, offset some of their losses from earlier in the years and stuff and make up for that during circuit. And yeah, this is a business, and yes, I'm sure they have to make money and they got to capitalize on it when they can. And that's just a reality. I mean, I think this is what I struggle with. Like, I don't know why. I think there's a tough position where a lot of people expect horse shows to provide. It's almost like to provide a charity, and
Yeah. I
that's
mean, I
a tough
guess.
comment. Why does a horse show? Everybody screams out there, "Oh God, showing is so expensive. It's this, it's that, it's this and that." But maybe you can help me rationalize this because I'm on both sides. I am on both sides. I am not sitting in the seat just as a horse show organizer. My daughter competes. My wife has competed in her whole life. I've competed. Like I never, I was never one, to be honest, that complained about my horse show bills. I was never one that did that. I was a big freaking complainer at horse shows. That's kind of why I have a business right now. Like I complained about the other details. I was big on relating what I'm paying for what I'm getting, but I wasn't a complainer about little tiny fees here and there. I actually was somebody that, entered late because my manager didn't know what decision or what show I was going to go to last, and I accepted it, you know? So I don't understand why events get a flack for being expensive, especially when it's a big high performance event. Okay? Like I think it's on the exhibitor to find unique ways to compete, to develop horses, these kind of things. And then again, if you want to do the big classes, if you want to do the 7-year-old final like you're discussing, then to me, ribbons are about competing and getting accolades and prestige. It's not about winning money when you get to when you're at a certain level. Like for me, this goes back to the amateur conversation too. Like to me, I've given lots of prize money to a lot of amateur classes. And I know some people that's really important, but it is not important to everybody. They want an amazing ribbon. They want the accolades
I, I
of that's the
and
majority.
I understand both sides. I think there are two sides in our sport. There's the side in our sport that wants to complete and have fun, and there's the side of our sport that wants to be competitive. I think those are two different things. But what I think is if you're trying to be competitive, but there's no distinguish
But
of
why is money involved?
because it's a sport. I think if you call it a sport,
But
there
an
should be
amateur
money
and
involved.
junior in other sports don't get to earn any money ever.
Well, first off, we went into that argument.
We didn't finish it.
Yeah, we didn't finish it, but actually, I had a couple people from Chicago reach out to me via email, like I asked, and you know, I'm
They did. I
struggling
don't think we
still.
put out that
I'm
episode yet.
struggling. Okay, text message, whatever it was.
Okay.
I'm struggling with I don't think prize money should be there for the junior and amateurs because I feel like you're saying, oh, well, it's an expensive sport and, you're paying for what you get, which I don't disagree with. There's high levels for the sport, but there's low levels of the sport. But I think that if you're trying to be competitive and you give out prize money, let's just talk about juniors. I don't want to get too much into the amateur part of it, but for juniors, two specific riders that were brought up to my attention, one being Tiffany Foster, which I don't know if she's the highest ranked female rider in the world, but she is the first or second
I
highest
think
ranked
Aaron
female.
Ballard is
Okay.
maybe.
I think the two of them they go back and forth. And then you have Ken Farrington, which is the highest ranked US rider in the world. I think he's second right now. I'm not really sure. Both of those started, I will say, at the bottom of the sport. Tiffany, you read her interview. She started off grooming. Kent, Kent would go to whether it be a race barn or whatever, just to get the opportunities to ride. They both eventually found a professional in an industry that says, "I'll pay the bills. You ride good enough to win the prize money," and they did it that way. Now we're saying that maybe the difference between them still being in the sport and not is that they wouldn't have gotten those opportunities had there not been a consequence for them winning. Do you see what I'm saying?
But
Like, I
winning,
think
but where's the correlation with prize money? We're talking about
because
it's
those
important because
professionals would not been able to cover 4 horses at the shows for Kent or Tiffany when they were
if those
12 or
divisions
13,
didn't have prize money.
or they do have prize money. I'm telling
But
you,
you're saying
when
if they didn't have prize money, they
if they
wouldn't be
didn't
able
have
to do
prize
it.
money, that might have been the difference between Ken Farrington being a show jumping rider or Ken Farrington being a hedge fund manager. That might have been the difference. He's a very smart individual. Anyone that's met him, he's very highly intelligent. He enjoys doing a lot of other things. But I'm just saying, I feel like just saying, "Oh, juniors don't shouldn't get prize money," that would affect some of the higher level kids that are taking every opportunity they can to get to the top of the level. I'm not talking about amateurs, but I'm talking about those juniors specifically too that have reached the top from the bottom. That could have made the
But
difference
why
between them
not
staying in it or
why
not.
though? Why not like any other sport? Like we're talking about why are the fees and the costs so high? And I'm
Yeah.
saying my point is that if we didn't have to give out this levels of prize money to these certain divisions, we could make it more affordable for them.
I
And
mean,
that's
I
supposed
don't.
to be the idea. Like I don't know, we need to bring in somebody that's not in this industry because
Okay.
this is not normal. Like it is
Yeah.
not normal to pay juniors and amateurs any kind of money for their competition results. I you cannot name another sport in the world that does that.
Sports cars, you have a hefty entry fee into race cars, and there's a pro am division. I don't know what it
They
is,
give prize money.
and they give prize money out to the people first through last.
Is there
So
a it, there's a
there's a
there
huge entry fee. Yeah, there's a huge entry barrier. There's a big entry barrier for ours, but they are rewarded. Whether it be a pro am cup, they are rewarded with prize money. But that's a great question. I'm just saying I understand you're saying
Where's our
hypothetically.
producer Anthony? Where's our producer Anthony before we go to another topic? Maybe he can Anthony, you on here? I don't know if you can even sign on and do this, but hopefully he can. Oh, wait, I think he can. It's he might not be able to show his face, but maybe he can maybe he can because he's not an
Well,
equestrian, but he like
the question I want to leave everyone if we're about to finish is I am a firm believer if you're saying, well, if I take away the prize money, which I don't agree with, I can lower the cost, which I don't know how marginally you're going to lower the cost enough where that makes sense. Versus if you can find a way to not lower the cost, but compare it to the similar. I don't know what the right answer is. I guess no one does, but that has been the $1 million question. The prices and the costs have gone up, the prize money has not followed in a general, not being the FEI level, from the smallest division to the highest division.
Anthony, you on here?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can't see you, but I can hear you. Hopefully
Yeah.
this
Well,
goes
it
through.
won't work.
What's your take on this? You're unbiased.
So I would say, as someone that's not competed in the horse industry, my relevance to the horse industry is I filmed a lot of horse industry things, and then my grandfather raced thoroughbreds. But uh, outside of that, I have competed in sports at all levels. Um, to a point, like at high levels too, at national levels. I trained in martial arts and competed at the national level, um, and I've competed in dog agility as an adult, as a non-professional. In my experiences, I've growing up, I always, there was no prize money in any of my sports, baseball, martial arts, anything like that. There was never any prize money. I know that there was a lot of fees involved because my parents certainly talked about it. But to that extent, I
Do you think it's a good thing or do you think it's a bad thing that there's prize money for juniors and amateurs in our world?
I think I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Uh, I think that the argument that the juniors wouldn't compete if there wasn't prize money isn't necessarily true. And maybe that's something that's like deep ingrained in the horse industry and something that's expected, but I think that if you truly love the sport, no matter what that sport is, you're competing for the you're competing for that ribbon, and you're competing to get better at the hopes of one day being able to get to the level of
Being able to earn money from it or do something at a
yeah.
bigger level.
So I think that if juniors are in it for the money, they're in it for the wrong reasons.
And I have to say, the juniors aren't in it for the money. It's
Other
the
people in the
parents being
industry.
able.
Yeah.
No, it's the parent. It's the kids' parents being able to do either you can do this or you have to go play tennis because I can't afford this. And then
Yeah,
that's
it's
it. It's
tough.
not
I
like
mean,
I didn't know I was getting paid as an 8-year-old. That's not discussed, and I wasn't getting paid as an 8-year-old. But I'm saying I was able to do it because if you're trying to get to the top of the sport, that helped
well, and I
get
understand that like not every sport costs what this sport costs. I mean, horses are extremely expensive, and especially if you're trying to like, I get those points. I'm just trying to connect it to the fees, and I think
well.
it's an important conversation.
Yeah, it is an important, and now you see already NCAA, like we discussed in last episode, is starting to approve you getting, what is it,
Name, image, and like.
name, image, and likeness, all that. It is starting to trickle down because of social media. I don't know if there's a way that social media can help our sport. I don't think it can hurt, but I don't know how we can tap into that.
Yeah, I only want to say that like I genuinely believe that the general junior and amateur, I'm not saying everybody, the general junior and amateur are competing for the prestige, the accolades, the culmination of hard work, and that, I mean, that's what a horse show is about. A horse show is about going and competing and showing off what you've worked so hard to learn how to do. And getting those awards is what it comes down to. I think first and foremost before prize money. That's my opinion. Now, being an organizer, I see it. I know the majority of people of course, the prize money is great, but they're focused on how they're going to compete and place and what they can do to place higher and better and everything. Majority of them are not necessarily focused on the prize money aspect, and that's the junior and amateur only. I just want to be clear. Let's get back to the fees. Is there ones that I already list? Because I have another list I want to read out to people. Is there any other fees on that list that you are flagging for me that you have an issue with?
Well,
Or you think it's good for so?
so late entry fee, what is that roughly on your shows?
So a late entry fee is $50.
And when you cancel a show last minute, do you give a credit to all the riders a late cancellation fee of $50, or how
We
does that work?
refund. We're not just giving
But
money.
you don't give them $50 if you were to cancel the event because they maybe have booked Airbnbs. I'm just asking. I'm just curious. Like they maybe have booked Airbnbs that are non-refundable or already had their flights or any of that. So no, none of those are I'm just saying, like, I understand the late entry fee, but then how does it work when a show cancels? I don't know.
I think
Yeah,
that's
that's a
stretch.
stretch. Okay.
That's
So
a
you get
stretch.
you get your entry fee back.
Okay, we're gonna pay you. No, you're coming for our service. Sorry.
Okay, so we're coming for your service and you get to charge
The
the late
horse
fee.
show. You're coming
But
for the horse show. Take that up with
So
Airbnb, not us.
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Okay. No, like I said, I don't I
So let's
USCF
before is
fee.
that what you're asking me? So late entry fee. Okay, just so that's a really good point. Late
Okay.
entry fee is so important. It's not necessarily just because the office staff has to scramble to put that entry together for you guys and
Yeah.
everything, and but it's also, you made a point earlier that's really important. Like planning a certain amount of time out is a huge factor, especially for 1 and 2 off type horse shows. Maybe not big circuits. I can't speak for them because I don't have any. But planning, okay, that can be the swing of hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of planning. Let's say we get in June, okay, we have to try to account for this. And it's a huge swing. Let's say we get 250 horses that come in late and are within a week of the horse show. Okay. You know how many tents that is to try to plan for? That's 3 tents, stabling tents that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to put up. That's what that late entry fee's for. We have our vendors, meaning our vendors that do this amount of work for us, like we need to give them like minimum is like 2 weeks out of a hard number of what we need, right? So you can see how much scrambling goes into accommodate. It's not just like poof, there it is, right? It's there because we're anticipating these people entering late, and that's a little bit of a problem, you know.
Yeah,
And that's what that fee is for.
I get that. So I guess like your one of your ideas, we'll call it, is that without giving prize money to the junior or amateurs, you'll be able to lower the fees. But the majority of the fees that you've listed has nothing to do necessarily with
entry fees.
Okay, entry fees. So
would be
you're just
lower
strictly
entry
talking
fees.
about a nomination fee and the entry fee.
Correct.
Okay, so the first stall, USCF, FEI, facility, paramedic, USJCA, stall, ship it,
Those are
manure
going to be a
removal,
given.
office fee, night fee, security, late entry fee, non-choice. There's nothing we can do about that. You're strictly just talking about the last 2 fees on
The
the list.
entry fees really can make up to half of a total bill for a horse show.
Okay. Okay.
So it's a lot. It could be a lot. Like if we were not
Well, so
giving
you're
out
basically
prize
just
money.
saying just look at the low not, and I don't mean low level, but the low jumping hunters or jumpers. A lot of that already happens, right? If there's no
Yeah, but
nomination fee, how does that work?
let's just look at a meter 20 junior amateur. It's a
Okay.
popular division, okay?
Okay.
Meter 20 junior amateur. We have to give out a lot of prize money for that division. It's I think the classic is minimum like $5,000 or 3,500 plus, depending on the horse show, and then you have then you have the other classes prize money. So let's call it 5K plus for the week in prize money for that. Like, you know, divide that by, let's say, I don't know how many are in the class, 20 or 30. Okay, you could call it, or kind of routinely in that. Entry fees for class, $75, $100, depending on the prize money. So for instance, if that horse jumps 2 classes at $100 a class, that's $200. And then you take the classic, which is a lot of prize money, maybe 5,000 plus for that, and you have an entry fee of what is 350. I don't know, something. I'm just off the top of my head. You know, you're looking at over $500 right there, and just to do that division. Okay, so if we didn't have to give out prize money, I would guess as an organizer, of course, we're going to charge a fee. Even my schooling shows, we charge $30 around, $50 around, you know, those kind of things. So you look at why is a schooling show able to charge less in these things? They do things to less detail, but they also are not giving out as much. So their entry fees are lower. So if you could save, what would be your choice? Let me ask you your opinion. If you could save $300 every single week of showing because of it in exchange for showing prize money, knowing that only a select number of people really earn money in the prize money in those kind of divisions, would you do it or not?
I'm biased because I'm that select that is on this side of the scale. So yeah, I'm competitive. Like
you're also not you're not an amateur or junior.
No, I'm not. But I'd say like you're talking to probably more than 50% of the people that do it are looking to have fun and complete the courses.
They would love
they would love your idea. And then the other 50%, I said 50%. More than 50%. Yeah. Yeah. So I said, but the other 45% that wants to be competitive, I don't.
So maybe my idea has some legs then. If the
I
majority
I would
might like
say
my idea.
I would say they would like the idea of add back better. I'd say if there's a hybrid version where you could do add back, I don't see the downplay of it because, like you're saying, if you don't have to charge prize money, you can charge X amount less. But if you have 80 in the division, you could just make a little less,
Yeah.
and then it would make up the difference.
But yeah, and I'm all for, I got to run a business. Okay.
Yeah.
I had to cancel 3 shows this year.
Okay.
Like, right. Like I
Yeah.
can't lose my ass on
Yeah.
these things. Like that
Yeah.
nobody wants to do that. But I
Yeah.
also want my competitors, my exhibitors, and my clients to be happy. I want them to come to our horse shows and say, it's expensive, but man, they did a good job and it was worth it. That's sort of our motto at Split Rock. With that being said, part of being happy at events is feeling that way, is saying, I got what I paid for. And if I want to find ways to continue to make people happy. If it means having a less expensive experience for them or a less expensive bill, like, okay. Like I actually, from the beginning, in the beginning of our events, people used to say that we were so expensive and we were like the most expensive out there. Now I'm proud to say that we're not. And I've strategically made a point of that, is having shows in accessible areas where their whole weekend, not just what we're charging, hopefully ends up costing them a little less. You know what I mean? I think that's important to look at that big picture. And it's a good conversation because I don't think anybody's ever really brought up that take about juniors and amateurs and equitation not giving out prize money. Now they're giving out trainer bonus type things that do pay the professionals that are doing what you're talking about. Like I
But
really like.
essentially, what you're talking about is what I'm talking about. So if the equitation classes are paying out professionals, it's the same thing as if a junior rider is riding a professional's horse in the junior divisions. They're
I'd
getting
be game
paid.
for that. I'd be game
Yeah.
for that. I don't
Yeah.
Doesn't matter to me. I'd be game for that. I just think that it's weird. Like I don't know. I think a long time ago, nobody's to blame for it now. I just think it's weird that it's been set up this way. That like hypothetically, that person is that kid is making that money in the small pony hunter ring, or even though it's indirectly maybe going to somebody else, their parents or something like you're saying. Like
Or a
I don't,
professional
I
that's
don't think the
catch riding
system is
for it. Yeah.
right. I don't think the system is like perfect right now, in that regard.
Well,
And I think,
obviously it's not because, like I said, the costs are going up and the prize money staying the same. So
yeah, but
there has to be some
think
sort of give.
that's where I think like it could be something as simple to say, let's lower the prize money expectation in certain levels, okay, and maybe raise it in others, and we'll get to that. Raise it in others, and curb that expectation in certain areas, so the people that are really you know, fighting for something different get charged less. I mean, something's you can't have it both ways.
Well, it's also
Both
so hard,
areas have to
which
shift.
we haven't even touched on this topic. I think you have in one of your earlier podcasts, but the difference between a one-off horse show, which is a specialty event that's just held 1 week of the year,
Economies of scale.
versus a medium horse show that does a 2 week series, like let's just say Lake Placid, versus a big box horse show that owns their own venue that runs for 2 to 3 months at a time. The margin of scale, but also what is each purpose of each horse show? Is it a nonprofit like Southampton Horse Show? Is it a for-profit that's trying to make money, or is it maybe a real estate play? There's so many different avenues, and maybe that is affecting whether it be the cost or whatnot.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, that's all I got for
Do
everyone.
you want me to answer something about that, or is it just a comment?
You can, no, that was just a comment.
You're so right.
Because I know like there could be so many different plays we have no idea behind the closed doors. Are they doing it to make money? Are they doing it?
I'm having to pivot, honestly, in my business.
Sorry.
Let's be real. I'm having to pivot. Like, and I don't know that I like it.
Yeah.
I'm just being real. Like, I'm the person that started running boutique horse shows that wanted to do jumper only, and I'm like, crap. I got 3, 4, 5 years in, and I'm like, how do I survive doing this? Like,
yeah.
And it's the bigger horse shows that run for conglomerates that run for a really long time, they serve a purpose for a lot of people. I'm not knocking them. It's just put out other events and put them out of business. I don't care whether they're charity events, specialty events, boutique events. I mean, they just can't compete because economies of scale. Like these events can put in bigger details, bigger offerings, bigger amenities, bigger prize monies because they can spread it out over a number of weeks. And that's just
Yeah,
the nature of the beast.
it
Good
is.
for them. They've capitalized on it and it is what it is. I mean, the only thing
Yeah,
I can say out there is people please support these 1 and 2 offs that are trying to survive because they need it. They need your support. These events need your support more than ever. Travel during the summer, travel, in the fall and spring. Like support these 1 and 2 off 1, 2, 3 week or series events versus a 13 weeker, 15 weeker. Like I'm just saying, like it's just the
yeah,
nature of the beast. If
it
you don't
is.
want to see them disappear, and everybody wants competition in this industry, if you don't want to see them disappear, support them. Go to
Yeah,
their shows.
yeah,
Bring the horses. That's the only way. Anyway,
yeah,
cool. Good
yeah. Cool.
conversation. I
All
want to
right.
run down a couple other fees just so I'm not missing things. There's other aspects I want people to understand. Like I think it's great. This is just business. I never complain about paying fees to the federations or things like that personally because in general, you know, people want to follow these programs with their federations, USHAA, USEF, FEI, like to have these programs and these things are what drives people to come to these events. So I'm grateful for it, not the opposite. I'm not like, oh, people are gonna be like, oh, why would you want to pay these fees? I was like, because I'm hosting their events. What does that mean? Of course, I'm hosting their events. There's a cost associated with that. I understand it. So with that being said, like so people understand, a lot of the divisions that people come show at and compete for, like don't realize that these are like USEF, USHAA, FEI type literal events that they're offering that we're hosting for them, so that there's a fee associated with it. Like if you're a horse competing, we got to pay them a fee for you competing in them. Okay, so it's like you know you have, let's say, like a North American League Adult Hunter Classic fee at $7 a horse we have to pay. Children, $7 a horse. NAL, meter 10 Classic, 20, 30 Classic, $7 a horse.
World champion hunter
Uh,
rider.
WCHR type of stuff, Ariat medal, NHS, McClay, 3-3 medal, 3-3 Hamel, all these type of classes, Charlie, we pay fees for. USHA National Hunter Derby, $35 a horse. USHA International Hunter Derby, $35 a horse. Like these have to be translated somewhere. You know what I mean? And if you want to
100%.
compete in them, you got to pay those fees. So anyway, I just didn't want to pass over that a lot of these hosted things, you know, we have to then go pay for you competing in it. So that's why an entry fee might be a certain something or a certain way. Um, Also, FEI post. Let's talk about FEI post competition fees because I want that translates into a whole nother topic that I really want to talk to you about before we sign off. Is that's the fees for FEIs are in correlation to the amount of prize money we're giving out. Okay, so for amounts up to I think it's FEI rates their fees in Swiss francs. So I'm just going to speak in Swiss francs. We have to pay 4.7% of prize money up to 149,999 thousand, 4.2% on 150,000 to 249,999
When you say
thousand.
pay, you mean that's what you get to charge
We have to pay FEI in order to host FEI
Okay.
events. Okay.
Okay.
3% on amounts between 250,000 and 499,000. 2.5% on 500,000 to 799,999,000, and 2% on 800,000 to 999,000, almost a million in Swiss francs, and 1% on 1 million and above Swiss francs. So we have to pay a fee for hosting events of that caliber. Obviously, the fees go down the more you're giving because they wanted to incentivize events to give out more. So I understand that aspect of it. This is This is in exchange for people competing at your events to get world ranking points and bigger sums of prize money. This is what we have to pay in dues. So it just correlates to why we have to charge what we charge a little bit. You got anything to say on FEI fees or anything?
I mean, I think we touched on it a little bit in the podcast. I understand that it's like a. Did you explain the entry fees? How
So
like you could
I
charge for
actually was
2-star,
one of
3-star, 4-star,
yeah, I
5-star?
actually was one of the first ones to start a tiered system, in FEI, because you're only allowed to charge, I believe it's 4% of the total prize money for the show and an entry fee for 3 horses and 1 rider at a 2-star. At a 3-star is 3%, a 4-star is 2%, and a 5-star is 1%. And FEI has made it that way because the higher you level go in the sport, they want it to be similar to like other sports where the professional shouldn't, they want to pay less the higher level goes, which in theory makes sense. I think you had an issue with saying that like WEF, I think was charging 10 grand, but that means they're giving out a total in $1 million in prize money and it's 1%. So, that's why they're charging that. So in our sport, it's a little bit different than other sports because a lot of times the athlete owns the horse. In other sports that charge big entry fees and stuff like that, like racing, like you were talking about, a lot of times in professional, there's a company behind it or an owner to those. So, it just depends on the situation. You're having an issue with saying at the highest level. I remember you were saying in the last episode that you're like, why does WEF, for instance, not give out more prize money in the 5 stars?
Yeah, I mean, I say WEF, but North America. I mean, like when I competed in
Basically anybody
2012.
outside Spruce Meadows that gives out so much.
Yeah, yeah.
They lowered
Like
it this year.
Spruce Meadows gave away 5 million for one class last year. They were the highest. I get that, or five
That's
million
awesome.
Canadian. But why is it that in 2012 we were, the U.S. was giving out $3 million classes hits, and now you have these series popping up in Europe, the Rolex Grand Slam and those events, but yet now we're 12 years later and we don't have any in the U.S. That's a little hard for me to grasp. Maybe the one now in California, or is it a Canadian? I don't know. But anyways, where when I was doing those $1 million classes, some of them were FEI, some of them weren't. They still were getting charged $3,500 for that horse. I feel like I understand now better the tier system, how you're explaining. Let's say 3 horses get charged. It's 10 grand for 3 horses, right? I understand that, but really, it's just one horse that can win about half that prize money in one class. And say there's 60 riders in the division for the 5-star, only 40 get to do that class. So 20 of them are only competing for 500 grand, not really a million, because you're not even doing that class.
I
So
think it's
then,
tough. There's a lot of shows. There's
it's
a lot of
layers.
shows that again, we've done a cost episode that
Yeah.
it's not apples to apples. FEI is a losing venture, meaning hosting FEI competitions, that's not the draw. Like it's a losing venture.
No, it is the draw for people
Maybe
to
it's a
come,
draw, yeah, but
but
you
it's
can't.
not the draw for
The
organizers to
event
make money.
can't recoup, but with the amount of people in it, maybe only WEF can.
Yeah.
Okay, with the quantities, like
And
you'd have
the
to have.
tables are selling for Saturday night.
Yeah, so like that's a tough one. It's the rest of that those groups bring to the show and all of that. But so I don't know. I think that I would agree with you in some situations. Other events, I just know I'll tell you cannot afford to do it, cannot afford to offer more. I do think the ones that can, and I'm sorry, we all know which ones those are, should offer more.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm a manager and I'll say it.
Yeah.
Like, I agree with you. I think it's insane that WEF is not giving out multi-million-dollar classes. Like,
Yeah,
that does make
I,
no sense to me.
I don't know the backlog. I don't know any of that,
I
but
don't either.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like
Okay,
if you're that caliber, how could that finale Grand Prix not be a million at this point? I agree with you. I'm not
minimum.
trying to
Yeah,
knock it.
yeah.
And we talk about Wellington because it's like the gold standard. Like,
I mean,
you know, so it's the
when riders like Harry Smolders comes over and he's like, "This is jumping a 5-star Saturday night at WEF is as hard as any Grand Prix or harder than I have to do in the summertime." You know that's saying something coming from
yeah.
somebody of that caliber.
I think
Yeah.
we only have a few minutes left, and I really
Okay.
want to touch on. It's been an awesome episode, but I really want to touch on um, why do you feel that events get so much flack? I'm actually gonna I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but like I generally feel like events and event organizers or whatever get most flack from foreign competitors. It's true. It's true. I get more phone calls from foreign competitors and exhibitors than any saying that our events are too expensive because they're used to paying less and less. And just do the European model. How come you can't do it? How come you can't charge 30 euros and that's it? And these things. Like, what's your opinion on that, dude?
You know, I don't agree with them on that sport. Like, horses are ingrained in Europe culture way more than they are, I would say, in US historically. Like, even recently, you could grow up and have a normal job, whether it be whatever your dad is, a lawyer or a school teacher or whatever, and there's a good chance you still have 1 or 2 horses in your backyard. That was normal in Belgium and Holland. Pretty recently, that was still normal. That's not the case here in the U.S. And I think it's maybe a little more, a cultural thing that the expectation is that it can be the same as, I don't know if you came from Colombia or Argentina or even Mexico or Europe, but also in Europe, it being such a recognized sport for so long, it's just a totally different bag of
Also,
worms
the
that you get
model
into.
anyway here, just so everybody knows, is totally different. And
Yeah.
it's totally different. You can't just say boilerplate will make it that way.
Yeah.
Well, then
No.
why don't
And
you?
listen, and
You know what I
listen,
mean?
and also people are trying. Like, there are schooling shows in Wellington where I can go and take a horse and show for $150, and it's a good footing, it's good jumps, it's in Wellington, and there's two
Great.
or three of
Yeah.
those, and people are doing one-off events that USCF or other people are trying to promote to have other options. I'm not saying that that's more training shows.
But
Those
let's
are
go to
different.
the basics of why. When I think of a European model, okay, a lot of those shows, it's funny, I was talking to course designers about this. Those, they're not even paying their jump crew, they're volunteers. A lot of those shows also, when you say are ingrained in their culture, it's so true. It's way more of a sport over there because people have a different feeling about horses for the sport over there. It's a little tighter knit. And those people, a lot of when you're talking high performance shows, like big shows, like 5-star shows, when you can sell, and I'm just learning this now, actually, because we have World Cup finals next year, like they have different revenue streams. And you can't just say, "Well, figure it out here." No, you're right. The people here are not going to, in a general horse show, an every week type of horse show, are not going to come spectate it in the 50 to 100,000 spectator type of realm like some of those major events are. When you can charge $100 a ticket to 50,000 people, think about it. You can offer a whole lot more. You can have volunteers, not have to pay the staff, all these things. You can charge food and beverage and everything like that. It's totally different. And the shows that they're referring to that you can charge 10 euros or whatever, yeah, they have a much more grassroots ship in type of thing. And they run horse shows at people's farms on a Tuesday and these things in Europe. And that's why it's easier to produce horses. But to have a big horse show like that here, it's just it's just such a different model, and it's a tough conversation to have. I think it's impossible to break that model. If they can figure out a way to do it here better than we can.
To be honest, though, it's a little bit, they're a little bit stuck in their ways, because when you go to a 2-star show in Tryon or a 2-star show in Kentucky or a 2-star show in Saugerties, you're getting a lot for a 2-star compared to if you go to a 2-star show in Europe. I just saying, but whether it be quality of the rings, the footing, the stalls, they don't have all these fees probably because, I don't know if they have all,
Yeah.
do they have nighttime and security and do they have the protection and the USEF and the USGA? I don't know if they have all that. I don't. I think they come here and be like, oh, I shipped in my 2-horse trailer. And listen, we still have some events like that, but don't try to compare, I think, our 2-stars to theirs because they're apples to oranges. It's a different league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you got to pick and choose. You
Yeah.
got to say what's in your financial realm, what type of events are in your financial realm. You have to say what level you want to get to. You have to be realistic with yourself. I think everybody does, and relate it to, how much you can afford and you're willing to give, and choose your tours and choose your venues and choose your locations and shows and all those things. It's just a big factor. It's the nature of the beast. I think it's everything is getting more expensive for everybody just by natural inflation over the past 4 years, 8 years, these kind of things.
Double. Yeah.
This is the nature of the beast. And it's getting harder and harder. Like I've found myself, my price hikes at the venues I work at are going up and up. And I've actually, believe it or not, struggled big time with fighting the urge to keep increasing our fees more and more to keep up. And at some point, I'll have to.
Yeah.
Prices of manure removal, the prices of rentals, the prices of tents, the prices of labor costs, flights, accommodations. Like you think of all these things that we have to pay, our prices are going up. How can we not keep staying on par? That's the tough part. Anyway, awesome conversation, Charlie. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be so interesting for people to listen to. I encourage everybody to reach out to us at HorseShow360. You can DM us on HorseShow360 Instagram. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on HorseShow360 podcast. We've had a great episode today, joined by Charlie Jayne. It was great to hear his competitor insight into why we charge all the fees that we do and whatnot. I hope this helps let people know the reasoning behind all of it. And we hope you continue to tune in on all of your podcast platforms, whether it be iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We hope you keep tuning in, and we hope you keep reaching out to us, letting us know what you want to hear in the future, and we're game to talk about it. Thank you guys so much, and
thank you very much,
see you next week. Thanks, Charlie.